What can I say? You've already given it up for Heather Booth and filmmaker Lilly Rivlin. All right. All right.
And to all of you, truly, you are the change makers. You are the people who make this change possible. Many of you have been doing it for a lifetime. Some of you have come into this just now. And we need to keep on the organizing and the movement building. And it's not a question of if, but only a question of when.
Another request. Will all the organizers stand up, please? Stand up, organizers. Come on, stand up. Look at each other. Look, look, look. All right. Okay, yay. Okay.
I want to call one more person onto the stage, a very special person we're very lucky to have with us tonight, Rabbi Sydney Mintz from Temple Emmanuel and from Bend the Ark, a Jewish voice for justice. Okay, and everyone should have their own mic so we don't have any hoarseness. As was shown, and I expected, this is a crowd full of organizers. And so I really have some special questions tonight. As I was rewatching the film, which I love, I got to put Heather on the spot, though I'm not sure it's possible to put Heather on the spot. But looking at the strategy chart, okay, I'm thinking of your strategy charts. You know, what is your goal right now? What do you see as the overall goal? And what's the strategy to get there? What's on the chart?
The mic is working? Okay, great, wonderful. We thank the technicians. Before I comment on that, I do want to thank so many of the people in this audience. It's actually, the audience is so filled with people who've given your life to organizing and social change. We could spend most of the time thanking you, but at least a few. First of all, my brother, David Tobis, is here, who is in the film, and my husband of 50 years now, Paul Booth, in the film, and David's wife, Risa Jaroslaw, who helped in the organizing of this, definitely Bend the Ark. Josie Mooney is here with the Next Gen Climate and 10 interns. Karen Thomas is here, who was one of the past directors of Midwest Academy, and this is a reunion for us. She helped to make this move on. Laura X, who's been the Women's Archives, Alexandra Acker-Lyons, who helped to organize this. The names really go on. The San Francisco Labor Council, United Food and Commercial Workers, Margot Feinberg and Fred Ross, my cousins, who are organizers, lawyers, heart partners in this movement. Mike Miller is here, a longtime organizer, Tony Fazio, and Becky Bond and others who are making the organizing happening right now. The list goes on and on. Oh, the head of Apala is here, and truly the list goes on and on. I know when you start, it's a problem for those we don't mention, but at least understand how grateful we are to be your partners in this life struggle. Right now is one of the most perilous times I've faced in my lifetime. And I'm 71 years old now. I'll be 72 this year. I started as a teenager. This is something you can do your entire life. But it is perilous. It is likely some people will die. Families will be separated. Our rights, even democracy, will be undermined. It's also one of the most inspiring times I have ever faced in my life. More people are in motion now than have ever been in motion in my lifetime. Coming out, joining organizations, all of you, a new organization, Indivisible. Every day, Swing Left, there's one group after another, as well as the existing organizations. And that inspiration needs to be captured. The mobilization obviously is working to some extent because it's one of the reasons that they have not been able to repeal health care. with leaving 30 million or more without insurance. It's because of the work that people have been doing. But we need to take that mobilization and move it into depth and build organization into organizing. And then, for 2018 and beyond, move it into the elections using every form of power we have. So those are some of the elements I think we need to do now, and we need to listen and talk to people and hear new ideas of what are the next steps we need to take and build on this inspiring time.
That's great. And I just want to say that I'm going to ask just a few questions and then open it to the audience, so everyone will get their chance. Rabbi Mintz, I was really struck talking to you. I mean, I know there's a lot of people out here that are out there and they're already doing the work, but I know you said to me on the phone, I was very interested in that people come to you in the work that you do in the temple and talk about their feelings of powerlessness and lethargy and what they're feeling. And I'm interested in, what are you hearing from people and what are you telling them?
First, I just wanted to share my organizing credential. When I asked my parents, Heather Booth's mic is working. They always turn the rabbi's mic way down, or the cantor. I asked my parents, did we have anything in our family having to do with organizing? Because I grew up in Chicago, and my dad said the first girl I kissed in Chicago was Saul Olinsky's daughter. That's my whole organizing credential. So, but yes.
You are also.
Thank you. So, thank you. So, what I said to Susan was, people all over, whether you're affiliated with a synagogue or you're in some way affiliated with the Jewish community, are feeling that sense of desperation. And Lilly and Heather, not everybody can be Lilly Rivlin or Heather Booth. And so what I tell people is, watch a movie like this, and you will feel inspired, but it also can be daunting, because not everybody can be a full-time organizer. And what I say is, I go back to Pirkei Avot and I share with my congregants and people who just feel that sense of despair that we all feel, is that there's hope. And Pirkei Avot says that we are not responsible for completing the task, but if you are a Jew, in fact, if you're a human being, you are not free to desist from starting it. And so there's so many different portals and ways for people to get involved. One of them that we share, obviously, is Bend the Ark. We're both Stella Fellows, and there's many organizations all over this country that are just begging for people to come forward, Jewish and non-Jewish organizations, begging people to come forward and to help us move this needle, as you have spent your life doing, many different ways.
That's very helpful to me. Lilly, I wanted to ask you, I mean, I'm still very much in this film, and it's a beautiful film, and I don't want to move away from this film, but I'm really aware that this is possibly the last in a trilogy on women. Well, you called it on women activists. I think of your film about Grace Paley and the film about Esther Broner. I think of them as artists. So what's the relationship? How are artists activists, or activists artists, or what does this trilogy mean?
Well, I hope this is on, but I think art and culture is part of organizing. Art and culture, I mean, Grace Paley was an artist, but she was an activist. And Esther Broner was a writer, but she was out there all the time. So there's a deep relationship. And I think, you didn't ask me, but everybody asks, what made me choose Heather? So for me, it's a gut thing, but I think that art is a gut thing. And I was researching, I wanted to make a film on abortion. And I worked on that about 4 months, and then I saw the film that Heather was in. It's called, what is it called?
Jane, an abortion story.
Jane, an abortion story, and it's still Women Make Movies distributed. And I was talking to Heather along the way, and at one point, and it became very clear to me that you do not see films on abortion on television. And so I said I was talking to Heather, and then it just came out of me. And I said, well, why don't I make a film about you? And you answered,
Because I've been an organizer and much more in the background, part of me did not like the idea of it being about me. I really wanted it to be about the movement that's being built, the organizations being built, the people's stories. And what I gladly said is that as long as the film is about and will help build the movement, I will gladly be part of it. And for 4 years, we've pretty much been partners. We now call each other sisters. And by the way, for those who are interested in supporting the film as an organizing tool, we encourage you, we'd be glad to talk with you at the end of this, because we're trying to raise funds to support the film as an organizing tool. And there is a website. I wouldn't have called the website this, but it's www.heatherbooththefilm. And you can also donate there, as well as if you're interested in renting the film, you can contact Women Make Movies, and there'll be cards that I believe bend the arc. Do you have the cards for Bend the Arc?
Yes, I believe the cards are out in tables out front and will be in all
great.
the
And
There's,
theaters.
there's also 2 members from Bend the Arc, Carrie and Hannah, who will have clipboards
And we
for
are
everybody
so
to sign
grateful
up.
for them and their volunteer effort. And there's a way to see a card to see how to engage the film. You can show it in all sorts of places. It was just shown at the NAACP National Convention in Baltimore last night. There's one other thing I wanted to say for what Lilly said about culture and organizing. We are so fundamentally for bread and roses. They go together. Yes, it is bread we fight for, but we fight for roses too. And Lilly brings both of them together. I thank you again, my sister.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I'd like it to open it up now to questions from the audience. We have a mic going around that will find you.
No, no, no. No? Okay. No? All right. Let's see. Question.
Can you raise the lights just a little so we can see
Come through here.
more of the audience? Yeah.
In the booth, if you can raise the lights so we can see.
They're all the way up.
They're up.
Oh, they are.
Hi,
Hi.
how are you, Heather Booth?
How
It's
are you?
Christine.
Oh, Christine Pelosi. We've been partners politically. She is one of the lead trainers of women and lead trainers of people in the electoral and political system. An inspiration.
Well, more important, I actually had to run out of the room at the end of because my mom called. So Nancy Pelosi says hi, and she was organizing me about health care. This is my question.
Thank her for her leadership.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so a lot of us understand that we have to organize, and yet we're finding it difficult to come together in this time. We agree that we don't like what Trump is doing, but we can't necessarily agree on what we should be doing. So what is your advice for people on how to get over the 2016 primary and the feeling that we have of powerlessness? We all thought that at this point we'd be pushing a Democratic administration from the left, but instead we're not. So what's your advice for people on how to get along with people who don't get along with them or who actively disagree with them?
Well, first of all, a movement will also be messy. And so there will be disagreements. And there will also can be greater unity than ever before. I believe that out of moments often of greatest crisis, there can be the greatest advance. In fact, had the election gone as we wish it had gone, and many of us worked as hard as we could to make it go in a different direction, but we probably would not be making the kinds of changes that now need to be made, doing the kind of engaged grassroots organizing, the use of an engagement of more volunteers that Becky Bond and Zach Exley are talking about, the changes that we now see in the Democratic Party. I was just involved in a major training program that they are doing, where every state party was brought in to then engage the groups that are part of the resistance going on around the country, of whether it's Indivisible or Planned Parenthood or Black Lives Matter or whatever the groups are, and to say that this is outward looking as well as building a new infrastructure. These are changes. They're changes of culture, changes of practice, and I do think they're changes that will lead us to the kinds of victories we need in the future. But we have to actually do that organizing in places where we have not been before, and take your training.
I want to add something to that because the other day I met Joan Blaze. Is she here by any chance? Move On.
The founders of Move On.
Move On. Are you here? Oh, anyway, they've got a program that really sounds very good where people come together, both left and right, and they talk. And, you know, I'm always for small groups talking because that's how the feminist movement started. And I still think that's the best way, so I want to add to that.
Rabbi Mintz, did you want to?
I did want to add one thing, which is, you know, you talked about being in your 70s, and I just turned 50. And one of the things that I think is so critical is no matter what your age, is to reach down, reach to the generations, reach to your children and your grandchildren, and if they won't listen to you, reach to their friends who might, because nobody wants to listen to their parents, but some of their friends will. And I think galvanizing young people who really feel that sense of hope that we have, the people who have experienced the last 80, 70, 60, 50 years and had daunting and critical hurdles, who still have hope. And I think that that's one thing we have to keep. I mean, every single time I'm in a group of people, every time I have people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, I say, why aren't you running for office? What are you doing? If you care that much, get involved in your local politics, get involved in your regional and your state politics. That's where it starts. But really speak to people, pan email, face to face. Get off of Facebook and get in their faces.
We have a question in.
It's really great. Do we have another question?
Yes, question in the back center.
Thank you for a wonderful and very inspiring movie. Fannie Lou Hamer was a good friend of mine and an inspiration for me for many years. Heather, who inspires you now? And when you get tired, what's the drive that keeps you going?
By the way, and what is your name? The picture of me playing the guitar is with, many of you knew this, but is with Fannie Lou Hamer outside of her home in Rollville, Mississippi, when I was 18. What is your name, sir?
I'm Malcolm Gisson, and I was in Mississippi from 1966 for years thereafter. I started as a first-year law student with the Lawyers Committee and met Fannie Lou and many other black leaders, and she was just an extraordinary woman.
We thank you, and also we thank the CRM Vets, here with the CRM Vets website, who's also, there are many people here who are veterans of, who are veterans of SNCC and this other elements, CORE and other groups in the civil rights movement. One thing that, several things, I'd say, I think I have three things that particularly keep me going. One is, honestly, you and events like this. Lilly and I are going around the country, which we didn't really anticipate at the start, but because there is such an inspiring movement developing, and then you'll spread the message. We had a friend came in and said, you know, I was coming in, I'm feeling like I'm going to slit my wrists. I hope I have something optimistic to say when I leave. We hope you do, and we hope you take that message. So in fact, it's not just these audiences, but these audiences magnified, and young people coming into the movement. So the people themselves is really what gives us strength and enduring strength. Secondly, I do think that we need to think of ourselves as long-distance runners. This is not a sprint. It's a long-distance fight. And it goes on. There was a song from the civil rights movement. They say that freedom is a constant struggle. It does say, I've struggled so long. We must be free. We must be free. And so we do things. I'm in 2 different book clubs. We're in a theater group that we can have a discussion with friends every now and then. We travel. We see our grandkids. No matter how intense the struggle, we make sure we have the time for our lives. My husband and I, and Paul Booth has been an organizer, as you saw, from SDS and from AFSCME and from early Alinsky organizing in Chicago. And we do work at it. And because we work at it, I also think it gets better and better. So one is the inspiration of the people. A second is the ensuring that we have things that feed us personally so that we take care of ourselves in this struggle. But third, I think a major reason that people often burn out is they don't have a sense that the struggle is worth the effort. They don't have a sense of a strategy that makes some of the hardship, and there is some hardship, worth the investment. But it is when there is a strategic plan, and it's one of the reasons that I think that the training that Midwest Academy, or what Christine does, or what others do here, is so important. For those interested in the Academy, by the way, you can find it on the web, also at www.midwestacademy.com. And I am glad to see you're here and that you also are continuing the struggle. Thank you for your life of commitment.
I'd like to hear what the rabbi thinks about that.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. Oh, you were going to say that too, yeah. Where do you get it?
Well, I do have to say, a lot of it comes from small groups of committed people that we turn to when we feel that sense of hopelessness, and our elders. So it's a combination of going to people like the two of you, people who have sage wisdom about the past that will carry us. And there's that beautiful quote from Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. King, but it's misquoted by one word in the film, that the arc of the moral justice, the arc of the moral universe bends towards justice. Right? It bends, and that's where bend the arc comes from. But the idea of it doesn't bend on its own gives me a lot of hope. That it's not just this arc of justice that is on its own bending, because we see that it doesn't, and that the idea of we have to be benders, we have to be arc benders, gives me a lot of solace, because I never feel alone. That idea of having small groups of people who come together, they're kind of like the people who are your sponsors. They're like recovery sponsors for justice, right? You need a justice sponsor that you can call and say, I just had a terrible day. I feel like I have worked and worked and worked, and I feel like Mitch McConnell is just, I don't want to say what he is, but like you feel personally affronted every time you turn on the news. So I say, turn off the news and call somebody or meet them for coffee and talk about being an activist, talk about organizing, because we see it works.
On that note, we're going to have to end. Just thanking so much our three panelists for being here, for coming here.
Susan, thank you so much for your generosity, and thank the
And
Film
thank the
Festival.
audience
and
so
thank
much.
You, the organizers,
Yes.
those who support organizing, the funders, the administrators, whatever the role, the legal assistants. We thank you for your lives of commitment.
And please, everyone, join us out in the lobby as we say goodbye to Rabbi Mintz and Heather and Lilly.